Let's get into our conversation now, which is about teachers. And we know that when we got into junior school, many teachers were employed from internship into permanent. Some are still interns. A case went to court. Court says this internship program thingy, no, it is not constitutional. And we're going to understand what part of this is unconstitutional. But now the government, the Teacher Service Commission, is actually before Parliament saying we need to absorb all these teachers. And so we need Parliament to give us more money for it. Fortunately for the teachers, their national chairperson of their union, the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, is a member of the National Assembly representing Mhaya constituency. Omboko Milemba is our guest. Good morning.
Morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana, and thank you for inviting me.
It's good to have you here. You'll take us through, what was happening in court, what's been happening with the internship program, and what needs to happen going forward. But first, we'd like to welcome our guest with the day's quote. So listen to some words that were said by somebody here. Janet is going to give you the quote, and let's see your reflection of those words.
This quote is by Amanda Gorman, and she once said, "There is power in being robbed and still choosing to dance."
Power in being robbed.
And still choosing to dance.
And still choosing to dance.
Yeah.
You've been robbed. And still choosing to dance.
Right.
Well, it's resilience. I think it explains the resilience you need
To have.
in all these things.
True.
In all these things, so that you pursue a course.
Yeah.
In spite of the challenges that you may be facing and the other obstacles. Eyes on the ball.
Yeah.
Eyes on the ball. Okay.
Focus on the bigger game.
Yeah.
Let them tick this one. It's okay.
Here we are.
Stay the course.
This is our destination.
Right.
Yeah.
Wamenibia simu, they didn't know I was planning to buy 10 acres somewhere.
Na hiyo
Nice.
pesa yote iko kwa hiyo simu. Lakini hawana pin. Ita reverse.
It will work for me.
I still have several cards up my sleeve.
Yeah.
Omboko, take us through. We know junior school started in 2023. And several teachers have been employed since then. How many teachers do we have, both permanent and on internship currently in our junior schools?
Our junior schools have currently almost 121,000 teachers. Yeah.
Both permanent and
permanent and internship. The interns are 44,000.
Okay.
And of these 44,000, 22,000 of them have done a little bit longer internship, especially the ones that were employed in 2025. But the ones that were employed in January, though their letters came earlier, but they had to wait to be employed in January 2026, have done a lesser period.
Okay.
And that's partly where the problem lies.
Okay.
The history of internship in this country is old. The first internship is introduced in the year 2010. And in the year 2010, the first cohort of 18,000 are employed as interns. The Minister of Education is Ongeri. And I think the PS is Ole Kiapi. In the Treasury, we have Uhuru Kenyatta. He's not the president. But then the president is Kibaki. And then these teachers are promised that they work for 1 year, after which they will be confirmed.
Right.
But then what happens when the 1 year ends? The government of the time refuses to confirm them. So Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers goes on a strike. And that time, I want to thank the teachers because all the other teachers went on strike for the purpose of demanding that their colleagues who are in turn get employment. And indeed, they are employed, and when you check the first cohort, are now quite elderly people. Now, then in the year about 2018, because the union had fought internship because of the law, I'll be explaining that, they employ another cohort of teachers called relief teachers. Many people tend to forget this team of relief teachers, and they start paying them 30,000. But then again, the union makes noise, and the relief teachers are taken home, court was also involved. So they lie outside without any job and so on and so forth. Something that I'm fearing could happen to the 44,000 that we are having presently. But then good luck in the budget that's ensured or followed, money is put in the budget and first preference is given to the relief teachers. And that's how they were absorbed. They were being paid 30,000. But the first cohort of 2010 was being paid 15,000. Then now comes CB. So we forget about, in 2018, we forget about internship. But then in 2022, when CBC comes and the Presidential Working Party decides to put the junior school in the primary, a question you joked when I arrived in this hall about, we get that there is deficiency of teachers in the junior school. And the subjects being taught there are complex subjects which do not require the primary school teachers. So then we get back to the issue of interns. And the first cohort is employed in 2022. And this cohort was about 46,000. And this 46,000 worked for some times. In fact, they went all the way to 2 years when the original contract was saying 1 year. So you may see the discrepancies in law about how long you need to work. So they end up on the streets, the unions joins them, and all of them get converted into permanent and pensionable. But by the time they're being converted into permanent and pensionable, three more cohorts have been employed. One other cohort has been employed and has worked for only 6 months. Another cohort had earlier been employed and has worked for only 1 year. So in this set, the people were confirmed. One team worked for 2 years. Another one worked for 1 year. Another one worked for 6 months. That's why when you talk to those teachers and the union, there's the question of compensate. Where was the regulation? If this regulation was 1 year, why did other interns work for 2 years? And if so, can they be compensated? Others worked for 6. So there's grayness in this area. Finally, then the last interns are employed in 2025 and 2026, and they are 44,000. They are the ones that are now in the field. Meanwhile, what does the law say? Section 237 in the Constitution is the Teachers Service Commission Act. I am glad that I participated in the making of this act in Naivasha, alongside all other acts with other players within the union circles. And we really gave a lot of power to Teachers Service Commission, which we regret as a union having done. Because then we say, away from the powers, let me keep my eyes on the ball. In the act, we say that Teachers Service Commission will employ teachers on permanent and pensionable basis. They have no iota of right in law to employ these teachers as interns. So all that has been happening is an illegality, and that's why we went to court, plus other organizations, including the human rights organizations, and we actually were in the labor court. The matter left the labor court and went to the Court of Appeal, and a ruling has been done. And therefore, the internship program is finally declared illegal by the appeals court. We have been there before during the 50-60 pay increase for teachers. It's a very difficult court, and we want to thank that court. Teachers Service Commission must then quickly now change and move to Parliament. One, they must apologize for the teachers whom they employed wrongly because it was illegal. Number two, they must cease completely from employing any other teachers as interns. They must now come to Parliament. In my introduction, you are very clear that I'm also a member of Parliament. I've done a number of petitions to Parliament to have these teachers be confirmed, but now the court has ruled, and therefore they must follow the court order, come to Parliament, get a budget which will employ these teachers on permanent and pensionable basis. These teachers are suffering. They are paid 20,000. But of the 20,000, the deductions are done up there and they remain with 17,000. But because the junior secondary school is a complex place where we are teaching chemistry, mathematics, and other sciences, originally it was intended that they come from their own homes and villages. But unfortunately, you may not have all the chemistry teachers from your village. So we are forced to get them even from as far as Nyeri, teaching in Kisumu, and they have to get houses. These are also a group of teachers who had stayed out of employment for a very long time. They are already married. They are not very young. They have families, and with 17,000 they can't work. It also borders discrimination. that there's this person who is sitting with us here. You guys are doing the same job, but one of you is being paid less than the others. Yet the job you are doing is the same.
In fact, you've called it exploitation, right? That's the word you used, is they're being exploited.
These guys are being exploited, and the government owes them another pending bill, which has not been quantified.
So let me just get something right. So the matter that went to the Labor Court and into the Court of Appeal was on whether the Teacher Service Commission is allowed to hire teachers on internship basis. And what was declared unconstitutional is the fact that TSC cannot hire intern teachers. So what does that mean? That we should never have intern teachers?
Yes, we should never, because we are a country that respects the rule of law. Look at this. The president wants to build my favorite road from Rironi to Mau Summit. You obviously know the reasons why, because that's the road I use. But someone goes to court and stops it. Once it's stopped, the president stops until when he finishes the matter in court. And we have seen several other examples. We had the Shah case. When court pronounces itself on a matter, and this is appeal court, it is as pronounced. So we should not have intern teachers. We should have teachers being employed on permanent and pensionable basis, and same pay rates, just like the other teachers. I'm glad that I'm finally, God willing, now talking about the end of this internship program. It has been a real thorn in the flesh for the teachers who have suffered for a lot. They are exploited, thoroughly exploited. Cheap labor being provided to the government, and the payments low. They owe the teachers. Later on, we should be speaking about how they will be compensated for these wrongs. Randall Robinson, the debt. What America owes the blacks, I think we have the debt. What government and Teacher Service Commission owes the intern teachers.
What they're owed. Sorry, Janu.
No, please go ahead.
A few questions. So the TSC can only employ teachers on a permanent and pensionable basis. And I hear you make an amazing case for these teachers, and I think it's something we've talked about on this show many times. My question is, though, does this happen before or after graduation right now, the way this internship program works? And is it not a requirement, for their graduation, that you do some form of internship? In many other places, it's maybe 3 months, 6 months, depending on, what you're doing. Is it a requirement for graduation anywhere within our institutions that there be a period of internship?
Thank you. Now, there are professions in this country, and I think the quick one to choose would be medics. For them, there's a requirement for internship after the full training. For teachers, that requirement is not there. Why? Because when you are training as a teacher, and I'm a teacher of economics and history and government, you actually do your internship before you are posted, because education is something that when you impart, you must impart it correctly. If you miss it out, then you have destroyed a community. So the teachers do go for what would be then called internship in what is called teaching practice, where they actually teach, and they are not paid a salary completely for a period prescribed by the universities and the TSC, which unfortunately is a regulator and a professional body. I'll be talking about that. And then they finish. So this is a cohort of professionals who have already done their internship as teaching practice, and then you subject them to another internship, which is not even regulated on whether it will be 2 years, 1 year, as I explained, or even 6 months, or depending on when the authorities or the employer will decide. So that is why the Teacher Service Commission in law was given that mandate, employ permanent
and pensionable. Thanks for clarifying that. These are, for the entirety that we've been discussing this internship issue, I actually thought it was the internship that is a requirement for graduation. So the fact that they have already done their teaching practice and then come back now for a year, 2 years, who knows, is incredibly unfair. But I know, Jano, you wanted to ask something.
Omboko Milemba never went through. I left college and went to teach.
Straight. But when you were in college, you did your internship there.
Your teaching practice.
Your teaching practice.
6 months.
Okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Let me ask Omboko. Looking back all the way from 2010, when the Kibaki administration looked, we have brought in free primary education. We have a shortage of teachers. We don't have enough money to employ all these teachers right now on permanent and pensionable terms. What's our shortcut measure? The internship program is introduced, 1-year program, okay? Do you think there was logic then?
There was no logic. It was trying to circumvent the law, which is still being practiced today. You know, you have a law which you have to follow. Even in this house, you people have your own regulation. But you cannot circumvent the law using emotions. So what Kibaki did and what even currently is being done is to do an emotional appeal. I know we had what were called the propaganda tools. And one of them was emotional appeal, and others were like card stacking and branding. So you use emotional appeal to the country, including yourselves, and I can see you are falling in that trap. That look here, we have these too many students who don't have teachers, and we are asking Omboko and the unions to allow us employ them at a lower pay, which my sister there said very well, exploitation. So you are telling, allow us to exploit them for the sake of these children, circumventing the law using emotional appeal. The law is the law, and law must be followed to the letter and the spirit. It is not correct.
It was wrong then.
It is still wrong today.
It is wrong today. Yeah. Okay. You're a member of parliament. Are there sufficient resources to allocate to this? Let's say, you know the teacher shortage in the country. In fact, you will tell us that. I mean, how many teachers do we currently need as a matter of urgency so that our education actually meets the standard? And do we have resources?
We begin with the gap first. One, then we have to thank the government of President William Ruto for only one thing here. That the gap used to be over 200,000. In fact, it was being quoted at 120,000 thereabout. But when he came in, he has really tried to fill the gap. I'm aware that 76,000 have been employed. I'm aware that 44,000 are in intern program. I thank the courts that now the intern program is ending. So Parliament and government must completely employ this one. If we do put those figures together, we shall get 104 or 110. This is incredible. This has never happened before. I'm telling you, this has never happened before, because formerly teachers will be employed only 5,000 per year. To even fill a gap of 110, I don't know how many years would have taken. You need to divide 110,000, divide by 5,000. That would have been about 20 years or 25 years. So this is incredible, and we must actually speak to it directly. So it looked like the gap was being filled, but now JSS came. And then now JSS has the first cohort qualifying to the senior school, the grade 10. Now the grade 10 has new subjects that are completely not having teachers. And then it requires an increment in the number of teachers handling certain subjects, especially the so-called STEM subjects, the sciences, the chemistries, the mathematics. But we have introduced other subjects like engineering. We have introduced very, very new subjects there in that space, and those teachers are not there. So the gap has gone back to 115. And this is what needs to be bridged. Majority of these teachers will be required in the junior school, but also in the senior schools, to teach things to do with talent, which has been introduced there, and talent was not being taught before. It was not being taught before, and other many subjects in that space. So the gap is now big again. Now, do we have resources? We must equally thank the Kenyan government, because there is a ratio to which the budget and the budget of education should be placed. That ratio between your budget and how much you are giving to education. And worldwide, I think, is being recommended at about 20%. 20% of the budget of any country GDP, those calculations should actually go to education.
Mr. Milemba, can I pause you there? Let's come back and talk about the 20%. Let's pick it up after the break so that you can now talk to us about, do we have the resources? Treasury is saying there's constraints. So we'll come back and pick it from where you've just left it, of what it should be. But we are in studio with the National Chairperson for KUPPET, Omboko Milemba. We're talking about the fate of 44,000 JS teachers. We'll be back after the break. It's coming up to 7:30.
Screen.
Absolutely. Just before we get back into the kind of budget that's required to fund teachers, there's 4 fixers on YouTube who are weighing in on the conversation. Martin Kinoti says, ask Omboko Milemba what he has to say on Knec payment of contracted professionals. Then in brackets is put there examiners, supervisors, and invigilator. I can see Mwalimu is taking notes. The next 3, Francis Odhiambo says, good morning, fixers. Is Milemba aware of the current public wage bill and what it will take to employ all of the 44K teachers on PNP basis? Again, why dance to political tunes every election? The Kikombe say plus teachers and unemployed, yet it was budgeted for. Why are we making education a gamble? Is this a joke? The Kikombe is an educator, so he's really speaking from a pain point that he understands. And finally, Antonio Mina says, did you say they need 30 billion shillings annually to absorb the 44K teachers? And we are losing 10 billion annually in interest in Talanta Stadium? Kweli hii serikali iko na mchezo mingi. Mchezo.
Kuna fix mwingine anauliza CPG. CPG ni nini?
CPG ni career progression.
Okay.
And which we are also fighting because it has made the teachers take too long to get promoted. In CPG, it's a choreograph such that you can only be promoted when there's space for you to become a deputy or a principal. If we work like that with a limited number of schools, it means a teacher will never be promoted because those spaces will not be available. And therefore, we have been fighting it, but finally in the CBA we signed, we agreed with the Teacher Service Commission that CPG must come to an end on 1st of June this year. So we are bringing it to an end so that teachers can get promoted, even if they are not becoming principals or deputies. You can just grow in your career path all the way. You don't need to be an administrator to get promotion. We thank God for that.
It's a good one. Before we get back into the 20%, because you're talking about the budget, there's this whole question about the examiners and all.
Can I speak on the examiners?
Yes.
Knec matter, and you introduced me very well in Parliament, and I've taken the matter in Parliament through a petition. But each year, I have to be called upon by teachers to take Knec to Parliament in order to drag the Minister for Education on the floor of Parliament for him to pay Knec. In fact, in this petition, he was supposed to deliver it on Thursday before recess, but he did not. He said he had some other engagements. So we are waiting for him at the end of recess, which is about 30th or 31st. But Knec is underpaying examiners. Sometimes it pays even 30 shillings per script. The examiners are living in poor conditions. And these examiners are not even paid. Their money is after long they are finished. Could you imagine that the examiners did the marking last year in November, October? To date, they have not paid them any monies. And that's why we have this problem. So we have taken it to Parliament and we are asking the minister to arrange at Kenya National Examination Council to do it. But I also want to tell our teachers that for how long will Knec be disturbing us like this? They must build resilience of standing for their rights, because the last time we told them that we must deal with Knec with finality, we slowed down. I'm encouraging them that coming this year, when Knec calls our teachers to go and mark, and we tell them don't go and mark, they must not go. So that Knec calls us for a meeting, we have an MOU, an agreement on how the working conditions and payments will be. Sometimes you have to carry your own leaves, twigs, in order to be listened to. Then there's the issue of the wage bill. The wage bill, currently the wage bill in this country has been reducing, because I'm a member of the Debt and privatization committee, and I properly look at the numbers as they appear in the consolidated fund. Of course, from the consolidated fund, the first funds we usually get out would be paying of the debt.
Yeah.
That's the real burden. The next one would be the
Pension.
and then the third one are these wages, and but they have been generally on the trend of going down. But whichever way, even if it is increasing, you have some services which you cannot do with, even in our houses.
Yeah.
And I thought education should be ranked among such a services, that even if the wage bill is going down, you may see where to punch it down, but not with education, because this is the future of the nation. This is the inheritance we are leaving to the nation.
Yeah.
By educating our children to take over, to do these things. When they will have gone through the education system, I'm telling you, they will do this thing better than we are doing. So we really must invest there, and that will be my comment on that.
Okay.
Yes, I think finally was the issue of unpreparedness. This has really tagged along because once we went the CBC way, we must be prepared to spend and plan well in advance to raise these funds to pay the workers involved. Thank you.
All right. I wanted there was a question from before the break.
Yes.
It was on what percent?
The 20%.
It was on whether we can afford. So we
very
first
serious.
asked, what is the gap?
Yes.
And can we absorb this gap?
And we had done the gap. But now, can we afford? So the Kenyan government, though they generally are accepted standard is 20% of the budget, here in Kenya is 27%. If I'm wrong, it will be 26, which is way above. And that
To go
will
into
take-
what?
To go to education.
Okay. As a
And that's-
whole.
As a whole. And that's why you'll notice education takes a very good chunk. It's almost now going to a B because we are standing at about 700,000 in education. And we also need to fix that area properly, because is the 700B being used very well? There's a need for an audit in the Ministry of Education on how they're using the money. Need for an audit at the Teacher Service Commission. And remember, there are other monies that are given by members of parliament like myself as fees directly to the students. Others given by governors. Others given by all groups of people. There's even also the presidential scholarship. If we did merge all these monies together, we put all these funds together, will we not employ? Will we not employ these teachers without any pain? And will we not even have expansion of the space and the services in the education sector? So we need to think out of the box.
Yeah.
Sorry to use this old understanding, thinking outside the box, so that we are able to consolidate all the funds that are with members of parliament like myself. They are with governors. Governors are giving bursaries. Women reps are giving bursaries. Presidential scholarship. The equities are there. The Kenya Commercial Bank, the Education Ministry again is giving bursaries itself. Yet they have money. If we consolidate all these monies, brothers and sisters, we would be able to fix this, and even paying this would be very small. So we have the money. I've already identified one space where we can get the money, consolidating all these monies in that sector, and also using an audit to see how the monies are being used in the Ministry of Education. But then there are also other areas we can get these monies from, because education being what it is and as important as it is, we could yesterday but one. We made SHA, which is not working for teachers, but now we are fixing it with Ndwale. We want to thank Ndwale. He was very passionate. We realized that, yes, the scheme that the teachers were having, the medical cover under Minet, was having 27% of the monies being used for administration. But now under SHA, only 3% is being used for administration. We have saved 4.8 B. These are the monies we need to consolidate to come to this space. So there are monies here and there which needs to be consolidated. There are budgets of departments which are unable to absorb them. And we know the needs, for instance, other departments and so on and so forth. We should be able to get these monies for our children, because these children are for all of us.
Agreed. I feel like now you're speaking as the chair of KUPPET.
100%.
Yes.
Chair.
Yes. When you speak as member of parliament for Muhaya, you know your fellow members of parliament, the likelihood that they would agree for the consolidation of bursaries you know, and for that money to leave their basket and to go into the consolidated fund, into treasury, and come back to education, slim.
There's nothing gigantic, my sister. In Parliament itself, Parliament has made an effort to consolidate these monies. And the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula Masika, moved this business. It was later given to Juliet Mohammed. Juliet Mohammed moved the motion.
Junet.
Yeah, Junet. He moved the motion on the floor of Parliament. And then a committee was formed. In fact, I'm a member of that committee to consolidate all these monies. So Parliament is willing. You know, when you talk sense and people see the sense, parliamentarians can also understand it. Okay. The original idea went through Parliament and opposed. A committee ad hoc has been formed. I was tagged along as a member of that committee.
Right.
All we need to do is to ask Junet to bring that committee to start working so that we see how we can consolidate all these monies to make education free and compulsory.
Okay. How much would you be looking at if we consolidated all the bursaries and MPs, women reps, governor, everybody?
And everybody is in that space. It's a lot of money. It's not small money, given that every member of Parliament, that's where I can use a good example, would be possibly putting up about 50 million. They're about to bursary. I'm now using the climate, the highest amount you can always put at the bursary. It's about 60. So 60 times 200 and the number of MPs, you can start seeing how the figures will spiral quickly. And I've only talked about one line of that consolidation. I've not gone to the other people who are handling these monies.
Okay.
That's real.
Speaking of lines, you've spoken at length right now about everything that's happening. You threatened industrial action, in a sense. What is the red line that for you will say, if this is not met, we're going to have to threaten to go big, to go out there and say that we demand what's right for teachers? There
are a number of things. You don't just cross the red line because of one thing. Usually, unions will engage. And currently we have the challenge of interns being confirmed as PNP. But in the same junior school, we have that section of teachers, and you are aware, who are saying that they want to be autonomous. Yes, look at this. And you know, we want to bury our heads in the sand as leaders, me included, but I'm not burying my head in the sand. But the minister is not speaking to that. And the other players in this space, those teachers want their autonomy, because in law, there's nothing called comprehensive school. We must be a country that operates with the rule of law. When you go in the matrix of how the CBC was arranged, we have ECD, we have primary, we have junior school, we have senior school, and we have university. So that school called junior needs to be consolidated, and it becomes an independent school. Independence these days does not mean we build another set of classes. No. Independence in the university, where you people were, I was there a long time ago, would have the School of Education operating in the university under dean and deputy dean and it's the heads of departments and the whole structure. That's the way we need to go there, so that we actually get quality at that level of junior school. Currently, they are buying exams on the streets. We have all this, but we shall be put. So we have the issue of autonomy. We have the issue of the CBA for the teachers, because we were given a CBA 38 billion, but those 38 billion was spread in 4 phases. We made an effort to meet the president directly because he has influence in this, and he gave us a promissory note that the CBA would be paid in 2 phases. So that's something we shall be tagging along, moving forward, so that as he gets his 2 term, we also get our 2 phases. You see how it's going? And then we have the issue of promotion. Promotion for the teachers, it was very low. And we have been promised that a minimum that has to be done for the teachers should be 50,000. So that's something we are following in that space. Then CPG. And I'm happy through your own connectivity here, you were able to get CPG, career progression, which is stagnating the teachers in terms of promotion. That is something we are having on table. And then hardship allowance. And then we have the issue of acting. You know, there are teachers who are continuously acting in ASAL places as deputies, and they have never been paid. I loved your words exploitation, For me, I call it a pending bill. That you are a deputy in a SAL area, then areas of Narok, Northeastern, all those places, but you are never paid the remuneration that you require to be paid as a deputy or a principal. And you are also being paid what is called acting allowance or responsibility allowance. But good luck. Parliament has stood up. We did a law in Parliament. It is in the third reading where we are now legislating on how long a teacher should act. And we are saying it must only be 6 months. And if he continues beyond 6 months, he must be paid acting allowance, responsibility allowance, and so on and so forth. And we have now prescribed it in law. So I want to thank parliamentarians because they are really assisting teachers. This was a hurdle and it was serious exploitation. And therefore, if those the threshold of all those things are mentioned, plus a few that I may be forgetting, then that's where we now go to the red line.
That's the red line.
Yeah. Red line. For instance, if you find that the CBA is not being paid in 2 phases, my friend, and these interns have not been confirmed, my friend, we cross. And the SHA is not working for teachers, my friend, we cross.
So
the rest are details.
Just
the rest are details. The rest are details.
Okay. Let me speak to the learners.
Yep.
You're the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education. Fair enough. However, I'm not hearing anything for the learners in these demands of yours. And I get that that's someone else's job. But I'm wondering, what do we need to do to equip junior schools themselves? Because that's another big question. How well equipped are junior schools right now when it comes to, from a facility perspective? We've talked about the teachers, we know what that looks like, but from a facility perspective, so that as these learners go into senior school, they are equipped for their various pathways, they're equipped for their various life missions. As it stands, I don't know how learners going into senior school are really navigating the choices that they've been given. If you came from a good, maybe a private school or a well-equipped public school, you'll be able to decide and you'll have, gotten a chance to explore your various options. But if not, it's more or less a guessing game of, you did well in what? Huh? Okay.
You can be a good pilot.
Na mimi nitakuwa painter. Anyway, yeah. What about the learners?
I must appreciate that indeed we have not touched the learners a lot. I only have touched them a little bit when I talked about the buying of exams. When you go in the streets and buy exams, and junior school is buying street papers when we have teachers who can do very good assessment for the teachers themselves. I think that space needs to be more organized, the ministry, and that can be achieved through that autonomy that I've talked about, so that we are organized. Exams are set by teachers, because the teachers know where to touch in order to make the student grow in his area of study. But then going to the infrastructure, we want to thank Magoha. Magoha struggled to make sure that there were classes in senior schools. Unfortunately, the junior students were taken to the primary level. So those classes remain unused in the senior school. But that is now water under the bridge because we have crossed that line. And we need more classes in the junior schools. And originally we had advised that these students should have gone to the senior schools because in the primary school we don't have laboratories. As you look at it, and I want other Kenyans, if they could be listening, to look at this space. In the senior school we have laboratories. And sometimes the separation of the junior school and the senior school is just a fence. I am still advocating very seriously that we should allow cross-fence operations between these schools. And even transfers, Teacher Service Commission must be able to even transfer some teachers from senior school, if there are too many there, to junior schools and vice versa. Why would a student be suffering in one school, and if just crosses over, there's a laboratory for him to use? So that relationship between these schools is very, very important. But we need laboratories in the junior schools. They are not there. We also need more teachers there. They are not available. And we need infrastructure in terms of staff rooms and so on and so forth. When you go there, the junior school teachers are hooded in small rooms because the buildings were not there. And therefore, it's an area that we as parliamentarians must actually allocate more money to do infrastructure. I want to thank the members of parliament. They have done a number of classes. I think if you check, you'll find the figures. They are currently online. And also the government did a very good job in terms of the classes, but not yet enough. And then we have to fix the quality in that space so that we have proper teaching going on.
But you see, there's not the effort that's being put on that, Omboko, you'll agree with us, it's not as much as everything else. So of course, because brick and mortar works very well for a member of parliament, CDF is building a lot of classrooms. And the national government is building very many classrooms. They're not equipping the classrooms. Because the teachers' unions are strong, we are seeing the conversation around teachers. And because it's a political good thing, for the government to say, it has never happened in the history of this country. We've employed 115 so far, 115,000 teachers. It has never happened in the history. It's a good political thing. There are no facilities in those schools. Who is going to speak for the learner?
Brother,
if not you.
Brother, I'm the one to speak for the learners. And
You're
I've been
loud.
doing so.
You're not loud enough.
Oh, then I'll be louder.
Please.
I have a chance of being louder and even more louder. Thank you for that, because those facilities is where we have a challenge. The textbooks have not reached schools to date.
Yep.
Despite the promissory note we were given that they'll be there in 2 weeks. So that's a learning material. The few laboratories, if there's any, because there are no laboratories in the junior schools. Primary schools don't have laboratories, are not equipped and cannot produce the correct students for the STEM subjects that you talked about. And indeed, we want to promise as a union we take it up, because we don't only speak for teachers, but we also speak for learners.
We'll have you back. And because you're sitting on that committee that's seeking to consolidate all these funds, I would like to know from you if in your conversations as you're consolidating these monies and you're making sure that teachers are paid and they're paid well and they are on permanent and pensionable basis, that there will also be part of that going to fund essentially these facilities and to ensure that learners have a good shot at getting a junior school education.
Great. In fact, because the monies we are consolidating and consolidated is basically for the education sector. So it's not only going to employment, but also should be able to equip, should be able to do infrastructure, and should be able to do all that needs to be done in that space of education. The other day I failed with my amendment when we were looking at the law that established the infrastructure fund. The case study in India and Indonesia and other countries which have done infrastructure fund, usually a small percentage is taken from it to just deal with the social welfare issues, education, health, and so on. And I was moving an amendment to that extent, though it did not go through. But it's something that needs to be considered in future. That a 0.something% for education from that area. In America, for instance, you'll find education is being funded by the taxes that are derived from land. You see? So if we got such a small percentage and also become effective in the use of the monies we have, because there's also a lot of pilferage in the ministry that should be able to make our learners have better learning facilities. So as you have also given me that advice, we shall be louder on the learners. We also speak for the learners. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. I know we're about to wind up, so just want to look at some feedback. Martin Okoth Owan on YouTube says they are not being fair to future generations. Musa J. Early says, suggestion, introduce teacher ranks like teacher 1, 2, senior, head, deputy director, director of education, etc., to boost motivation. And then there is, let's see. There's somebody, Kikombe said, Singapore teachers earn about 300 to 400,000 Kenya shillings per month, yet education takes about 20% of the national budget. If Kenya gives more to education than SG, are we in limbo because the education cup is leaking? So it's a statement and a comment. Yeah. And then Wananchi just says Kenya government needs to be default. He's basically saying the Kenya government needs to do better. Okay. I think we'll leave it at that for now.
Brian Biowan says Mariam's hair is very indecent for a political view segment. Leniency called being selenial. Haya, we kuja na yako basi. Come na yako nzuri.
If
for
in
political
all,
view segment.
if this entire hour, that is what you've gotten from the interview, I'm very sorry. I am very sorry to you and yours. Hair is fine. Thank you very much for being here. Omboko Milemba, National Chairperson for KUPPET. In the next hour, before the gavel falls, how to survive auctions. We'll be speaking to Anthony Nganga, an advocate, talk to us all about how to survive auctions. It's coming up to 8 a.m.
Great.